September 5, 1943, Piedmont Army Research Facility, Germany. Dr. Werner von Braun knelt beside the smoldering remains of the V-2 rocket prototype. The metal hull was twisted, the liquid oxygen tanks ruptured, and the rocket's tail section had buried itself in the sandy soil. Smoke curled from the wreckage, carrying the acrid smell of burned alcohol and rocket fuel. Von Braun's gloved hand brushed a piece of shrapnel, his expression a mix of frustration and resolve. This was the 17th failed test flight of the V-2. Each explosion brought the project closer to cancellation, but von Braun refused to give up. Behind him, SS officers stood with arms crossed, their patience wearing thin. The Nazi high command wanted results, weapons that could terrorize Britain, not piles of scrap metal. Von Braun stood, dusting off his uniform. "We'll fix it," he said to no one in particular. "This rocket will fly." The V-2 was more than a weapon. It was the Nazi regime's most ambitious wonder weapon, a ballistic missile designed to strike London from 200 miles away, beyond the reach of Allied fighters or anti-aircraft guns. By 1943, Germany was losing the war. Allied bombers pounded Berlin and Hamburg daily. The Eastern Front was a bloodbath, with Soviet troops pushing westward. Hitler and his top advisors believed the V-2 could turn the tide. It would not just kill civilians, it would shatter British morale, forcing the Allies to negotiate peace. But the V-2 was also a scientific breakthrough. It was the world's first long-range ballistic missile, the first man-made object to cross the boundary of space, reaching an altitude of 88 miles, and the precursor to modern rockets that would take humans to the moon. Its failure as a weapon was inevitable. Too inaccurate, too expensive, too slow to mass produce, but its legacy as a scientific achievement would change the course of history. The origins of the V-2 trace back to the 1920s, when a small group of German scientists began experimenting with rocket technology. At the time, rockets were seen as a curiosity, tools for fireworks or small-scale experiments, not weapons. But men like Hermann Oberth, a Romanian-German physicist, believed rockets could one day carry payloads long distances. Oberth's 1923 book, The Rocket into Planetary Space, laid out the theoretical framework for ballistic missiles, arguing that a rocket powered by liquid fuel could escape Earth's atmosphere and reach other planets. His work inspired a generation of young scientists, including Werner von Braun, who read the book as a teenager and decided to dedicate his life to rocket research. In 1932, the German Army Ordnance Department hired von Braun, then a 20-year-old engineering student, to lead a team of scientists at the Kummersdorf Proving Ground, a remote facility outside Berlin. The goal was to develop a rocket that could carry explosives beyond the range of artillery. The team's first major project was the A-2 rocket, a small prototype 4 feet long, powered by ethanol and liquid oxygen. It could reach an altitude of 6,500 feet and carry a 22-pound payload. The A-2 was a success, but it was too small to be a weapon. The Army wanted something bigger. The A-3, a 21-foot-long rocket with a 330-pound payload. But the A-3 failed repeatedly. Its guidance system was unreliable and its fuel tanks leaked. By 1936, the Army realized Kummersdorf was too small for large-scale testing. They moved the project to Piedmont, a coastal facility on the Baltic Sea, and renamed it the Army Research Center for Rocket Propulsion, a front for the secret V-2 program. The technical challenges of building the V-2 were staggering. First, there was a propulsion system. The rocket needed an engine powerful enough to lift 27,000 pounds, the V-2's total weight. off the ground and push it to a speed of 3,500 miles per hour, fast enough to cross the English Channel in 5 minutes. Von Braun's team settled on a liquid-fueled engine, using ethanol, 75% alcohol, 25% water, as fuel and liquid oxygen as the oxidizer. The engine, designed by Walter Thiel, a brilliant engineer, produced 56,000 pounds of thrust, more power than any rocket engine ever built. But it was temperamental. The liquid oxygen, which boils at minus 297 degrees Fahrenheit, caused metal parts to crack if not insulated properly. The ethanol fuel was corrosive, eating through gaskets and pipes. In one early test, a fuel line ruptured, spraying ethanol onto a hot engine. The explosion killed 3 engineers, including Thiel. It was a devastating loss, but von Braun's team pressed on, refining the engine's design with new materials: stainless steel for the fuel lines, Teflon for gaskets that could withstand extreme conditions. Then there was the guidance system. Unlike artillery shells, which follow a predictable trajectory, ballistic missiles need to adjust their course mid-flight to hit a target. The V-2's guidance system was crude by modern standards, but revolutionary for its time. It used 2 gyroscopes, one for pitch, one for yaw, to keep the rocket stable, and a pendulum accelerometer to measure the rocket speed. When the rocket reached the desired velocity, the accelerometer would trigger the engine to shut off, sending the V-2 into a ballistic arc toward the target. The problem was accuracy. The gyroscopes drifted over time, causing the rocket to veer off course. The accelerometer was sensitive to vibration, leading to premature engine shutdowns. Early tests showed the V-2 could miss its target by up to 10 miles, useless for hitting military installations, though still deadly for cities. The team added a radio control system to correct the rocket's trajectory mid-flight, but it was easily jammed by Allied radio signals. By 1943, they had improved accuracy to within 1 mile of the target, enough for a weapon designed to terrorize cities, but not enough for precise military strikes. The airframe was another challenge. The V-2's hull was made of thin aluminum alloy, 0.1 inches thick in some areas, to keep weight down. It had a distinctive shape: a pointed nose cone, a cylindrical midsection holding the fuel tanks and guidance system, and a tail section with 4 fins for stability. The nose cone contained the warhead, a 2,200-pound explosive charge made of amytal, a mix of TNT and ammonium nitrate. The fuel tanks were divided into 2 parts, one for ethanol, one for liquid oxygen. They were lined with insulation to keep the liquid oxygen from boiling off during flight. But the aluminum hull was fragile. During test flights, the rocket would vibrate violently as it broke the sound barrier, causing the hull to crack. In one test, the vibration was so intense that the guidance system's gyroscope shattered, sending the V-2 spiraling into the Baltic Sea. The team added reinforcing ribs to the hull and dampeners to reduce vibration, but the problem persisted. It was a reminder that the V-2 was pushing the limits of 1940s technology, using materials and methods that were barely up to the task. By 1942, the V-2 project was running out of time and money. The Nazi regime had allocated 200 million Reichsmarks, equivalent to $800 million today, to the project, but each failed test flight ate into the budget. The SS, which had taken control of the project in 1941, threatened to shut it down if the rocket didn't fly by the end of the year. Von Braun's team worked around the clock, fixing the engine's fuel leaks, improving the guidance system's gyroscopes, and reinforcing the hull. On October 3, 1942, they launched the 18th prototype, The rocket lifted off smoothly, climbing into the sky with a roar. It reached an altitude of 50 miles, traveled 118 miles downrange, and crashed into the Baltic Sea within 2 miles of its target. The test was a success. Von Braun and his team cheered, but the SS officers were unimpressed. "It flies," one said. "Now make it kill." Mass-producing the V-2 was a logistical nightmare. The rocket had 20,000 parts, each requiring precision machining. Germany's factories were already strained by the war effort, producing tanks, aircraft, and small arms for the front lines. The Nazi High Command decided to build a new factory, codenamed Mittelwerk, in a network of caves near Nordhausen, Germany. The caves were chosen for their secrecy and protection from Allied bombers. But building the factory required slave labor. The SS rounded up 60,000 prisoners from concentration camps, Jews, Poles, Russians, and forced them to dig tunnels, assemble rocket parts, and load V-2s onto rail cars. Conditions were horrific. Prisoners worked 12-hour days without food or proper clothing. Thousands died from starvation, disease, or execution for slacking off. Von Braun visited Mittelwerk several times, witnessing the abuse firsthand. He later claimed he had no power to stop it, but survivors testified that he never spoke out against the SS. The V-2 success was built on blood, a fact that would haunt von Braun for the rest of his life. By September 1944, the first V-2s were ready for combat. The target was London. On September 8, 1944, a V-2 launched from a mobile platform in the Netherlands struck a residential street in Chiswick, West London. It killed 3 people and injured 17. Over the next 6 months, Germany launched 3,172 V-2s at Britain and Belgium, 2,500 at London, 672 at Antwerp, a major Allied port. The missile struck without warning. Unlike the V-1 flying bomb, a cruise missile that made a distinctive buzz before impact, the V-2 traveled faster than the speed of sound. The first sign of an attack was the explosion. The sound of the rocket's launch arrived minutes later. This made it impossible to evacuate areas under attack. The V-2s killed approximately 9,000 people, 6,000 in Britain, 3,000 in Belgium, and injured 17,000 more. But they failed to break British morale. The British government censored news of the V-2 attacks, telling the public the explosions were gas main bursts or plane crashes. When the truth was revealed, Britons rallied, much as they had during the Blitz. The V-2 was a terror weapon, but it was not a strategic one. It destroyed homes and lives, but it did nothing to stop the Allied advance. The V-2's failure as a weapon was due to 3 critical flaws. First, it was inaccurate. Most V-2s missed their targets by miles. A missile aimed at central London might strike a suburb 10 miles away, causing minimal damage. The Allies learned to predict V-2 launch sites, mobile platforms in the Netherlands, and bomb them, reducing the number of missiles reaching Britain. Second, it was too expensive. Each V-2 cost 100,000 Reichsmarks, enough to build 10 Panzer IV tanks or 20 Mi-109 fighters. Germany produced just 6,000 V-2s during the war, far too few to make a difference. Third, it was too slow to deploy. The first V-2 struck London in September 1944, when the Allies were already advancing into France. By March 1945, the Netherlands, the main launch site, was liberated and the V-2 attack stopped. The missile arrived too late to change the war's outcome, but the V-2's scientific legacy was already taking shape. Even as the rockets fell on London, Allied scientists were studying the technology. In 1944, the British captured AV-2 that had crashed in Sweden. It had veered off course, and shipped it to the United States for analysis. American engineers were stunned by the rocket's design: the liquid-fueled engine, the gyroscopic guidance system, the thin aluminum hull. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The U.S. government realized the V-2 was not just a weapon. It was a blueprint for the future of space travel. When Germany surrendered in May 1945, the Allies raced to capture Piedmont and Middlework, along with the scientists who had built the V-2. The U.S. launched Operation Paperclip, a secret program to recruit German scientists, including von Braun, to work for the American government. The Soviet Union captured the remaining V-2 parts and scientists, using them to build their own rocket program. The V-2 had failed as a Nazi weapon, but had become the foundation of the Cold War space race. For von Braun and his team, the end of the war was a chance at redemption. They surrendered to U.S. troops in May 1945, bringing with them 100 tons of V-2 blueprints and parts. The U.S. government granted them immunity from prosecution for their role in using slave labor at Middlework, though many of the scientists, including von Braun, were questioned about their ties to the Nazi regime. In 1946, von Braun and 118 other German scientists were brought to the United States, where they were stationed at Fort Bliss, Texas. Their job was to rebuild the V-2 and conduct test flights to study its performance. The first American-launched V-2 flew on April 16, 1946, from White Sands Proving Ground in New Mexico. It reached an altitude of 70 miles, carrying a payload of scientific instruments, a camera, a temperature sensor, a pressure gauge. The data it collected about the upper atmosphere, cosmic radiation, and the effects of zero gravity was groundbreaking. For the first time, scientists had direct measurements of space, not just theoretical models. The V-2's influence on modern science was profound. It revolutionized rocket engineering. The liquid-fueled engine design became the standard for all large rockets, from the U.S. Redstone rocket, used to launch the first American satellite, Explorer 1, in 1958, to the Saturn V, which took Apollo 11 to the moon in 1969. The V-2's guidance system, gyroscopes and accelerometers, was refined and miniaturized, leading to the inertial navigation systems used in modern aircraft, ships, and missiles. The rocket's ability to reach space paved the way for satellite technology. In 1957, the Soviet Union used a modified V-2 engine to launch Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite. In 1958, the U.S. used a Redstone rocket based on the V-2 to launch Explorer 1. The space age had begun, and it owed its existence to the V-2. The V-2 also advanced our understanding of physics and engineering. The rocket's supersonic flight helped scientists study compressibility, the phenomenon where air resistance builds up as an object approaches the speed of sound. This research led to the design of supersonic aircraft like the Concorde. The V-2's trips into space provided data on cosmic radiation, which was critical for protecting astronauts from radiation sickness. The rocket's fuel systems, liquid oxygen and ethanol, were studied and improved, leading to more efficient propellants like liquid hydrogen used in the space shuttle's main engines. Even the V-2's failures taught valuable lessons. The cracks in the hull led to the development of stronger, lighter materials like titanium. The unstable guidance system led to the invention of computerized navigation. The V-2 was a flawed weapon, but it was a perfect teacher. In the years after the war, the V-2 became a symbol of the moral complexity of scientific progress. It was a weapon of terror, built by slaves, used to kill innocent people. But it was also a scientific breakthrough that opened the door to space exploration. This duality haunted von Braun. In the 1950s and 1960s, he became a public figure in the United States, hosting TV shows about space travel and advocating for a manned mission to the moon. He rarely spoke about the V-2's dark past, about the prisoners at Middlework, about the people killed in London and Antwerp. But survivors of the concentration camps did not forget. In 1960, a group of former Middlework prisoners wrote a letter to President Eisenhower, demanding that von Braun be prosecuted for war crimes. The U.S. government ignored the letter. Von Braun was too valuable to the space program. He died in 1977, his legacy divided, celebrated as a space pioneer by some, condemned as a Nazi war criminal by others. Today, the V-2 is remembered as one of the most significant technological achievements of the 20th century. Dozens of V-2s survive in museums around the world. At the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., at the Deutsches Museum in Munich, at the Science Museum in London. These rockets are not just relics of World War II. They are monuments to human ingenuity. Looking at AV-2, you can see the future. The curves of the hull that would inspire the Saturn V, the engine nozzle that would evolve into the space shuttle's main engine, the guidance system that would lead to GPS. It is a reminder that even the darkest technologies can have bright legacies. The V-2 also offers a cautionary tale about the relationship between science and war. The Nazi regime funded the V-2 not for scientific progress, but for destruction. Yet the scientists who built it, men like von Braun, Oberth, and Thiel, were driven by a genuine curiosity about space. They saw the V-2 as a step toward exploring the stars, not just killing people. This tension between science's potential for good and its use for evil remains relevant today. From nuclear weapons to artificial intelligence, we continue to grapple with the ethical implications of technological progress. The V-2 story tells us that science cannot exist in a vacuum. It is shaped by the societies that fund it, the people who build it, and the purposes for which it is used. September 5th, 1943, the day of the 17th failed V-2 test, was a turning point for the project. Von Braun and his team analyzed the wreckage, identifying a faulty valve in the fuel line that had caused the explosion. They fixed the valve, redesigned the fuel system, and prepared for the next test. 2 weeks later, the 18th prototype flew. It was a small victory, but it kept the project alive. Looking back, that day in Piedmont was not just about a rocket. It was about the birth of a new era, an era where humans would leave Earth, explore space, and push the boundaries of what is possible. The V-2 failed as a Nazi weapon, but it succeeded as a scientific revolution. It proved that rockets could reach space, that humans could harness the power of liquid fuel, and that even the most ambitious dreams could become reality. In the end, the V-2's legacy is a complex one. It was a tool of terror, built on suffering, but it was also a bridge to the stars. It reminds us that science is neither good nor evil. It is a tool, and its purpose is determined by the people who use it. The V-2 scientists wanted to explore space. The Nazi regime wanted to destroy. The fact that the V-2 scientific legacy outlived its military one is a testament to the resilience of human curiosity. We remember the V-2 not for the deaths it caused, but for the doors it opened. It was a failed weapon, but it was a successful science experiment, one that changed the world forever. As we look at the moon today, We can trace a line back to that September day in Piedmont. The rockets that took Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to the moon were descendants of the V-2, the satellites that orbit Earth, providing communication, weather data, and navigation, owe their existence to the V-2's design. The scientists who study Mars, Jupiter, and beyond stand on the shoulders of the men who built the V-2. It is a strange, twisted legacy, one that begins with war and ends with exploration. But that is the nature of progress. Sometimes, the darkest moments produce the brightest ideas. Sometimes, a weapon of destruction becomes a tool of discovery. The V-2 was a Nazi wonder weapon that failed. But in its failure, it changed modern science and the course of human history.